What's up, y'all? We got four most disturbing internet mysteries. We finna get right into it.
Woman in the Fields. In September of 2016, a meme began spreading online with a deeply troubling image attached to it. The caption usually read something along the lines of, "Throwback to the days when you tell your parents you were at a sleepover, meanwhile you were actually in a field dying from drinking too much vodka." The image accompanying the text showed what appeared to be a young woman lying face down in a field surrounded by tall grass, seemingly dead. But it's not just the contents of the image that make it disturbing, it's the fact that the image itself has virtually no traceable origin anywhere on the internet. Despite being shared across countless posts and memes over the years, no one has been able to identify who took the photo, who the woman is, or what was actually happening when it was captured, with a popular theory on Reddit making it all the more eerie reading. Judging by the stiffness of her body and the way she is lying down, I think it's fair to say that the lady in the picture is most likely deceased. Unlike what many have assumed, I personally don't think that the gray object on or around her head is her gray hair. Instead, it looks like to me like a plastic grocery bag, which could perhaps be the object that was used to kill her. While it's very hard to make out much about the image, I think that the grainy, blurred, and poor photo quality could also somewhat back OP's theory of it being from a snuff film. It could plausibly be a frame taken from it. Let's assume for a moment that everything being claimed is true, that the woman is actually dead, and that the image originated from some kind of snuff video. The woman does appear unusually stiff and lifeless, and there even seems to be some kind of plastic material around her body. However, what makes this theory difficult to believe is the memes. If the image really was taken from a snuff film, it's strange that it would later be turned into a meme about drinking too much vodka. And while it's possible that the memes are referencing the original snuff video, it's even harder to explain how no trace of the full footage has ever surfaced online. In fact, beyond the image itself, there doesn't appear to be a single mention of any video matching it anywhere on the internet. Then there's the question of, if this really was a woman who was murdered on video, where are the police reports or news articles discussing such a case? You would expect at least some trace of an investigation, especially if the footage of the incident had been circulating online. Yet, despite years of people sharing the image, no one has ever been able to connect it to a confirmed homicide, missing person case, or news reports. A more realistic theory is that the image is nothing more than a meme showing a drunk woman. It just happens to look incredibly disturbing. From what I was able to find, there are countless similar images originating from Russia. Around 2010, alcohol abuse was a common subject of Russian internet memes, with many featuring people lying unconscious or passed out in random places. As a result, numerous images from that era share the same eerie aesthetic, often depicting someone who appears dead at first glance, when in reality, they may have simply been intoxicated. While this doesn't definitively prove that the woman is alive, it offers a far.
Bro, that's why I really don't like drinking that much, bro. You're telling me if I drink too much, I can just pass out anywhere, not know what's going on? I
More
just
realistic
can't.
explanation than the idea that the image came from a snuff film. Not to mention, what many people interpreted as a plastic bag wrapped around her body appears more likely to be some kind of raincoat or poncho. Unfortunately, given the limited amount of information available, it's impossible to determine the truth with any confidence. We can only hope that the theories about the woman being dead are false, and that the entire situation is nothing more than an elaborate joke or misunderstanding. Alfonso NG. Alfonso NG is an extremely concerning YouTube channel created in July of 2014 that contains over 1,000 videos, none of which seem to make much sense. Nearly every video follows the exact same formula. A middle-aged woman dressed in a maid outfit and wearing a name tag displaying what appears to be an identification code stands in front of the camera. The video begins by focusing on her body before she introduces herself, after which the person behind the camera begins asking her a series of questions.
Can you sing children's song?
Yes, ma'am.
Please try.
London Bridge is falling down, falling down, falling down. London Bridge is falling down. I fell.
And while the channel has been online for over a decade and contains hundreds of videos featuring different women, there still doesn't appear to be any clear explanation for its purpose. What makes the mystery even more unsettling is just how under the radar it has remained. Most of the videos have little to no views, and despite searching through forums and archives, I was only able to find one single Reddit thread discussing it. Beyond that, there is virtually nothing online explaining what Alfonso NG actually was or what ultimately happened to the hundreds of women featured on the channel. That lack of information has led to several disturbing theories. According to the most popular theory, the channel was some kind of database for human traffickers. Under this idea, each video served as a profile for a different woman, showcasing what she looked like, how she spoke, and other details a potential buyer might want to know. The identification numbers displayed on the woman's name tags also match the video titles, giving buyers a simple way to search the channel for a specific woman using her assigned code. However, while human trafficking is a very real crime, this theory seems fairly far-fetched. If the channel really was part of an operation involving hundreds of victims, publicly uploading videos of them to YouTube would be an incredibly risky way to operate.
Not only that, some of the women look too happy. Like the other one that they just played, she was kind of grinning a little bit. Like if you're getting trafficked, you're not smiling at all.
You would
I
expect an
would think.
organization involved in something that serious to go to much greater lengths to conceal its activities, rather than
And then I seen that one, like it was like a giraffe, the length thing, the measure. I can't put my finger on it to measure your height. It was like a kid one though. It kind of looked like a doctor's office or something.
openly posting them on popular websites. A more realistic theory is that the channel was nothing more than a collection of domestic workers seeking employment. You see, in many parts of Asia, it's common for domestic workers, particularly women, to find jobs as housekeepers, nannies, and maids for wealthier families. Because there's often significant competition for these positions, recruitment agencies sometimes create profiles and introductory videos, allowing potential employers to view each candidate before deciding who to hire.
That makes more sense, I ain't gonna lie.
Under this theory, the identification numbers can simply be employee IDs, while the interview-style questions were likely intended to showcase each woman's experience, language skills, and personality. Considering it's now been over 12 years since the channel was created, we'll likely never learn the full truth behind this disturbing internet mystery. Baby harvesting footage. On July 11, 2020, a user posted a thread to the RBI subreddit saying, "Video going around on Twitter of babies being harvested." Now, if you're lucky enough to have never seen the footage, it's an incredibly strange and disturbing video. The post was referencing to a shock video from Asia that appears to show several people washing the remains of babies. But here's where things take a strange turn. If you try searching for information about the footage online, you'll find nothing. No credible news articles, no official reports explaining what happened, and no confirmed origin for the video. Just shock websites and the occasional Reddit post asking for the origins. Now, one of the most popular theories surrounding the footage is that it shows evidence of so-called adrenochrome harvesting. If you're unfamiliar with the term, it's part of a bizarre and highly controversial internet conspiracy. The theory claims that powerful elites, Hollywood celebrities, and politicians kidnap and murder children to extract a substance called adrenochrome from their blood, supposedly using it as a psychedelic drug or anti-aging treatment. However, this theory has long since been debunked. Adrenochrome has no known anti-aging or youth-restoring properties, and there is no medical reason to harvest it from humans. The compound has been easily made in laboratories for decades, making the entire premises pretty unreasonable. Even if the conspiracy were somehow true, why would someone be allowed to openly film the process? If the footage really documented something that's secretive, it's difficult to imagine those involved willingly allowing it to be recorded. A somewhat more plausible explanation is that the footage shows medical infant cadavers being prepared or examined. However, that theory also begins to fall apart when you look at the environment in the video. While it's far too graphic to show here, the setting doesn't resemble what you would expect from a professional medical facility. Given the strict regulations surrounding the handling of human remains, the conditions shown in the footage seem highly inconsistent with standard medical practices. This has led to some bizarre theories, with some suggesting the footage shows an illegal underground market. But even then, allowing someone to openly film such an operation would be incredibly strange. And if the video really did capture evidence of a serious crime, you would expect some kind of police investigation or news coverage. Yet, despite years of speculation, no such reports appear to exist. In the end, the most likely explanation is that the entire video was created for shock value, with the babies actually being silicone reborn dolls that were being painted, assembled, or trimmed. Whether the footage was filmed inside a factory, an artist's workshop, or some other setting remains unclear. Whether the truth may be, the video's real origin remains a mystery.
I hope it's fake.
Unknown calls from a little girl. On March 25th, 2019, a Reddit user shared a bizarre call they had been receiving from what sounded like a little girl stating, "So a few years ago I moved to a new house in a new town. After living there for a few months, my brother mentioned that my son was talking to someone on the phone. My son told me it was his new friend. To keep this short, there was nobody on the phone. It was a recording of a little girl." So here's the breakdown. Music plays, then what sounds like a gunshot, then a little girl picks up, says a few things I can't understand and a few things I can't. The music comes back on and it loops again, over and over. Sometimes it would cut off on its own, and sometimes it would play over and over until you would hang up. It was all very random. Our phone would ring at odd times, and this would be on the phone. The phone company had no idea what it was or where it came from. I honestly don't even know what I'm looking for by sharing this. The name of the song, if this is actually from a movie, the actual dialogue of the recording. This is what the full call sounded like. Now, everything about the call was extremely odd. At first it sounded like ordinary hold music, but then a rigging sound could be heard and a little girl suddenly picks up. What makes it even stranger is what she says. While some of the words are difficult to make out, it sounds as if she's simply trying to have a conversation with someone. She then begins talking about how it's her third birthday and starts singing. Shortly afterward, the girl could be heard speaking to her dad before the call abruptly cuts off and returns to the same music from the beginning. To make the mystery even stranger, no one, not even the OP's cable company, was able to determine who was behind the calls or why the OP was receiving them in the first place. And then there's the question of motive. Why would anyone create a recording of a little girl talking, place it on a loop, and have it repeatedly call a random person at seemingly random times? Now, one of the first working theories—
Wait, you can do that? You can have a phone call somebody at a designated time?
was that the calls were part of a well-documented phenomenon known as phantom calls. A phantom call refers to an illicit telecommunication scam in which shady companies generate millions of automated ultra-short calls to phone numbers. Because the receiving party pays a termination fee to the telecom company hosting the line, scammers are able to profit by generating large volumes of these calls and taking share of the resulting revenue. While this theory seems plausible at first glance, it begins to fall apart when you compare the call to known phantom call scams. The scammers aren't trying to have a conversation or keep someone on the line. They simply need the call to connect before hanging up so they can generate revenue from the connection. As a result, these calls are often completely silent, last only a few seconds, and rarely contain any meaningful audio. OP's call was very different. Instead of silence, it contained a lengthy recording. Even more importantly, the OP claimed that if you didn't hang up, the recording would simply loop endlessly. That detail alone makes the phantom call theory very unlikely. However, another theory gave the already strange calls an even more disturbing purpose. Some people suggested that the little girl wasn't a child at all, but rather an adult woman intentionally pretending to sound like one in
That's what I was thinking at first, but it really sounds like a little kid. Like,
attempt to contact underage children. Several users claim the voice sounded unnaturally childlike, almost as if someone was deliberately exaggerating it to sound younger. Considering the calls were being made to the home phone, where anyone in the household could answer, and that the OP only discovered them after her child began talking to the recording, it wasn't a completely unrealistic theory. However, if the goal was to lure children, it's strange that the calls didn't disconnect when an adult answered. Not to mention, the recording itself was vague and difficult to understand. There was no clear attempt to encourage a child to stay on the line, reveal personal information, or do anything at all. I tried comparing the recordings to other reports of mysterious phone calls, and while I was able to identify the song used in the recording, I couldn't find any trace of the little girl's voice or where it came from. More than 10 years have now passed since the calls begun, with no new leads or explanations. It's likely we'll never solve this bizarre mystery.
That was a good video. Yo, he got more? I'm a sub to this man. He be making good videos. I'm gonna see y'all in the next one.